He picked it up, carried it to Marcus, dropped it at his feet, and wagged his tail. Marcus laughed, a soft, broken, exhausted sound. Guess she doesn't need you on night watch anymore. She was crying, and she didn't completely understand why, except that for 6 weeks, a dog had taken on a job no one had given him. Quiet, unpaid, unglamorous, and possibly the most important job in the house. He hadn't needed to understand what a newborn was, or what breathing was, or what danger was. He had simply paid attention when everyone else was too tired to. If the camera hadn't been recording, nobody in that house would have believed it. And here's what the Caldwells carry with them now, what every family with a dog and a newborn should know. When a dog stations itself beside something fragile and refuses to leave, that's not anxiety, that's not nuisance behavior. Dogs detect chemical shifts in breath, micro changes in body temperature, sounds pitched below anything a human ear can catch. Brindle wasn't trained to do any of it. Nobody asked him. Nobody rewarded him. He simply noticed, and he kept noticing, night after night, until the danger passed. The villain in most of these stories isn't the dog. It's the moment an exhausted adult decides it's probably nothing. Sometimes, the truest kinds of protection are invisible until the moment they aren't. We move through our days trusting the instruments, the alarms, the systems. And all the while, something quieter is watching, waiting in the dark beside the thing that matters most. What the Caldwells found that night wasn't just proof of a dog's loyalty. It was a reminder that paying attention, real, patient, unwavering attention, is its own kind of love. And sometimes, it comes from exactly the direction you least expected. If this story moved you, like and subscribe, and drop a comment telling me what you think Brindle actually sensed that night. I want to hear your theory. Like he was taking a reading, he looked toward the hallway, waited. Nothing happened. He lay back down. 23 minutes later, he stood up and walked back to the bassinet. His movement was precise, unhurried, completely deliberate. He nudged it once. When Marcus checked the monitor, the baby had paused breathing again, just long enough, just quiet enough, that no alarm had triggered. Do you think he knew? Or do you think it was something else? Tell me in the comments, because the answer their pediatrician gave them is not what either of them expected. At the next appointment, the doctor listened carefully, then told them the pauses were brief and not unusual, a phenomenon called periodic breathing, common in newborns and almost always harmless. But then he said something that caught in Lena's chest like a splinter. Dogs hear and smell things we don't even know exist. Changes in breathing, tiny chemical shifts, things our instruments aren't even calibrated to detect. He paused. I'd let him keep doing whatever he's doing. So they did. Brindle never stopped watching. Not during daytime naps, not during the long middle-of-the-night stretches when the answer to every question in that house was still uncertain. He stayed beside the bassinet like a quiet, warm fixture, patient, alert, and utterly without need for acknowledgement. And every time Lena looked at him, she felt something she couldn't name settle a little deeper into her chest. The moment that finally undid her came on a quiet afternoon 6 weeks later. Elara was sleeping steadily, breathing rhythmically, the kind of deep, certain sleep that no longer made Lena's chest seize. And Brindle, for the first time since they brought her home, stood up from beside the bassinet. He stretched his back legs out, turned his head, and looked at Elara one more time. A long, calm look. Then he walked across the room to the corner where his tennis ball had been sitting untouched for more than a month. She wasn't moving. Her chest looked completely, terrifyingly still. For 1 second, maybe 2, the room was the inside of a held breath. Then, Lena scooped her daughter up and the motion was enough. Elara gasped, a tiny, sudden inhalation, and then screamed at the top of her lungs. Marcus came down the stairs at a run. He took one look at Lena's face and didn't ask a single question. She was shaking. Elara was screaming. Brindle was sitting 3 feet away, tail completely motionless, watching them, and the expression on his face, if a dog could have an expression, was something Lena would describe later as finished. Like a dog who had just completed a job. What would you have done in that moment? Let me know in the comments, because what happened next is the part no doctor could fully explain. Marcus checked the security camera. The next morning, they watched the footage together in silence, standing at the kitchen counter with 2 untouched cups of coffee going cold. The footage showed the bassinet, the sleeping baby, Brindle lying beside it in the dark, completely still. And then, 20 seconds before he nudged the bassinet, before any alarm triggered, before Lena woke up, baby Elara's breathing slowed on the monitor's waveform, then slowed again. then stopped. Not for long, but long enough. Brindle had been watching her face. And the moment her breathing paused, his head lifted, his ears moved, his body shifted forward. He knew before any machine in that house did. Marcus set the phone down on the counter, and neither of them spoke for a long time. They told themselves it was a single incident, a lucky coincidence, a dog who happened to be awake at the right moment. 3 nights later, Brindle did it again. Just past midnight, Marcus had adjusted the bassinet's position earlier that evening. Brindle approached it around 12:15, hesitated, then pressed one paw gently against the frame, not pushing, just touching it, like he was taking a reading. Lena didn't answer, because Brindle hadn't played with anything in 3 days. And the way he watched her daughter's face wasn't curiosity. It was something quieter than that. Something she didn't have a word for yet. The strange behavior escalated in pieces, small enough to dismiss individually. Brindle began nudging the bassinet whenever Lena stepped into the kitchen. A soft push of his nose against the frame, then a look toward the doorway where she disappeared. Then he started following Marcus too, sticking to his heels whenever he carried Alara, parking himself in front of the rocking chair like a sentry. His ears stayed pitched forward, even when the baby slept peacefully. His body never fully released. "He's going to knock her over," Marcus said one evening, stepping around the dog for the 3rd time. "I almost tripped on him carrying her down the stairs." Lena opened her mouth to defend Brindle, and then closed it, because honestly, she wasn't sure anymore. The vigil had stopped feeling sweet 2 days ago. Now it felt wrong in a way she couldn't articulate. But that wasn't the strangest part. It was on the 5th night that he whined. Low, soft, urgent. A sound that threaded through the thin membrane of Lena's half-sleep and pulled her upright like a hook in her sternum. The living room was dark except for the green pulse of the baby monitor. Alara was in the bassinet. Brindle was beside it, staring at her daughter's face with his whole body coiled forward, making that sound. "Stop." Lena's voice came out sharper than she intended. "Brindle, stop." She stood up. He nudged the bassinet. Then again, then harder, until the whole frame shifted across the floor. "Stop it!" She grabbed his collar and pulled him back. And that was when she looked into the bassinet, and the world went absolutely silent. Alara wasn't crying. Brindle shoved the bassinet so hard it scraped across the hardwood floor. When Lena jolted awake and saw her newborn daughter lying completely still, not a flutter, not a sound. The floor seemed to drop out from under her. 1 second she was half asleep on the couch, the next she was watching security footage back with shaking hands, and what that camera had captured, 20 seconds before any alarm, before any monitor, before any human in that house had any idea, stopped the room cold. What they discovered that night changed everything they thought they knew about the dog they had almost sent away. And before we go any further, where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The Caldwells had been home from the hospital for exactly 72 hours when the exhaustion started eating them alive. Lena hadn't slept more than 40 minutes at a stretch. Baby Alara had arrived 6 days early, small, pink, furiously loud when she wanted to be, and the house that had once felt spacious now felt like a held breath. Brindle had been their dog for 4 years. A golden retriever who was more personality than animal, clumsy, obsessed with tennis balls, constitutionally incapable of walking past a person without nudging their hand for attention. But the morning they brought Alara home, something about him shifted in a way neither of them could name. He stopped eating his breakfast in one go. He stopped carrying toys to the door. He stationed himself beside the bassinet like a piece of furniture, ears forward, body still, watching Alara's face with an intensity that made Lena feel, irrationally, observed. "He's just curious," Marcus said. "She's new. He'll settle."